But once I lift my arms and do this or anything unwearable, I couldn't live my life like that. I made a super cool pullover that can be made with knits or woven. I chose to line mine, but when I tried it on, there was something that was super disappointing, something that was a fitting thing. I fixed it though. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. Thank you for those of you who sent me messages and emails worried about why I hadn't been posting. It's been a few days. I'll chat about that at the end of this episode if you want to know. Today I want to share something I made right after my son left, so at the beginning of February. These are patterns I sewed on my Patreon page. Every month I post a poll, and according to those votes is the pattern that I sew in full on detail. So it's not up to me. I just choose the 3 options. So the pattern that won was the Pogonip Pullover, and this is from Friday Pattern Company. I had this pattern for ages. I think I purchased it when it was released. I thought it was really cool looking, really comfy, stylish. I wasn't anticipating many fitting issues, and I was really drawn to the fact that it was a knit or woven type of pattern, which is not a common thing to see, and I really like the features. When you look at the website, I think the samples they sold or the fit models were super tall. I don't know. It seemed like a really short pullover. It seemed that that elasticized band was hitting sort of at the waistband of these pants. So that was the first thing that's just jumped out at me, thinking I need to check the length because I don't do that length very well. I always need a little bit longer. But otherwise, I loved it. Really wide plackets right here, a seam here underneath the placket, which makes the placket easier to sew as well. Underneath that seam, 2 welt pockets. The back is simple, drop shoulder style, 1-piece sleeve. And at the bottom of the sleeve and at the bottom of the hem, it's finished with the same casing, which is a separate pattern piece you sew on and then you thread the elastic through. 1-inch elastic. Now there's a feature here that I always knew was not going to be for me, which is a back sort of patch pocket. It is a lined pocket that you sew first, fully lined, and then you sew it onto the back. And the whole purpose of that is so that this could be like a packable jacket. It's like you fold your jacket into that pocket. For real, I don't really see the purpose of that other than just having fun with it. But because of my fabric choice and because I wanted to make mine fully lined, I'm sure that the bulk of my jacket, my particular one, was not going to fit into that packable pocket. So it was something I never intended to do. I just looked at that and thought that's totally optional. I'm not going into that detail. But it's fun if you would like to try something like that. It's not super hard. If you wanted to sew this with a knit fabric, then medium weight fabric that's a little more structured would be better. So French terry, rayon French terry, cotton French terry. You don't need that much stretch. Remember, this is also going to work with woven fabrics. There is enough ease in here so your fabric doesn't have to be super stretchy. You could use a stretch velvet. You could use a sweatshirting material, scuba. I would be very wary about having it be too heavy though because of the overlap of the placket areas and the welt pockets. You can have a lot of layers there. It could get very bulky, so I would keep it medium weight. And I would say the same thing for woven fabrics. I don't think I would want to sew this in a really heavyweight fabric. Linen, corduroy, denim, canvas, cotton sateen. Now let me show you what I chose. It's something I found right here in Cambridge at John Lewis. 50% polyester, 50% wool. Herringbone weave, really small. It's literally the same on both sides. So I'm going to have to pick which is my right and my wrong side. And I have 1.5 meters, which was all I had left. It's not too heavy, just a medium weight wool material, not too much, a little bit itchy. So I'm going to be lining this with cotton lawn. I have this black left over from another project. I thought the fabric was perfect. It's a lightweight wool material blended with polyester. I love the herringbone weave. I think it's classic. I love these types of garments that are going to match with any colorful thing that I want to pair it with. It's always the best thing. And I was gutted that when I went to buy it, all there was 1.5 meters. Because I had it in my mind to make this pullover with a matching A-line skirt. I could just see it. I could see myself wearing it and rocking it. And yeah, I'm like, are you sure you don't have any more? I looked online, gone from everywhere. You know, it's gone. That was really disappointing to me because lately I'm really into sets and these types of things look so cool as sets. For the lining, you need a little bit of lighter material like a cotton. The bottom piece where the welt pocket is, that is supposed to be lined in the pattern. So that's the only area that's designed to be lined. And of course, it's going to cover all the welt pocket business right there. But because my fabric is a little scratchy, I really don't want that on my skin, especially when I know I'm going to wear this underneath super light stuff. I wanted mine to be fully lined. So I just got a little bit more cotton lawn. I'm mixing it up with a bit of black, a bit of gray, just because it's what I had. The placket area here, or this front piece, I'm going to line it in black cotton lawn, because if this opens up, I'd rather you see a little bit of black than the gray. I don't find that gray very, very appealing. So everywhere else it's gray. This is something I'm doing. It's not part of the pattern at all. You need 4 buttons or 3 for the placket. I think in the line art it only shows 3, but I put 4 because I don't like huge distances between. And then you're gonna see that I ended up needing 2 more because something that happened down the line, I ended up using 6 buttons. 1-inch elastic, as I said, for the casings, and fusible interfacing. Fusible interfacing is mainly for the placket and the collar. I was shocked, sort of surprised, that they had no interfacing around the welt pocket area, which I think is a must, because you're going to be clipping and doing really, precise nipping. I wouldn't trust my weave, my fabric, to not end up with a hole down the line. So I added extra interfacing around the welt pocket area. That's something that was very, very important to me. Sizing is from extra small to 7X. It goes up to a 60-inch bust and 63-inch hip with the 7X. Looking at all the measurements there, I'm going to show you the chart that shows my size. I'm an extra large here. There is a lot of ease in this pattern, so I thought I like a little bit less ease, but I want to keep the same ease on my hips. So I sized down for the upper area. So neckline, sleeves, that's all a size large. From the waist down, I went to the extra large, which is my actual size, because I want to make sure that fits properly and that's comfortable. Now, I did do some flat pattern measurements. I knew I wanted mine 1 inch longer. So I'm still keeping it shortish, but not as short as it would be. I know I would be very upset. I'm not going to do a full bust adjustment here. I know this is designed for a B cup, but I don't think the style really requires it. I am only a C cup. So I think if you had a lot more cup sizes, difference, I think a full bust adjustment would be beneficial. But for me and my cup discrepancy, I thought I'm just going to do one little simple trick in the center front. Let me show you. This is the back piece. It's sort of straight. This is where I blended the size from L down to extra large here. And this is where the bottom piece is. So I don't see any lengthen and shorten lines. Because it's a straight silhouette, I just decided to add that at the bottom. So I have an inch here. Center back, all the way to the side, it's that same inch. And this is the bottom of the front piece. Remember, there's a separate piece with a placket. So I have that inch there to match the side seam. Side seam will be over here like that. But then at the center front, I have 2 inches there. So extra 2, just 1 here, and it's a slight curve. When I wear it, you won't see the curve. The difference between my front and my back with my bust projection is going to make that look straight, and I'm just making sure this doesn't pull out. So it's basically straight at the bottom. There's no shorten and lengthen line. I just added it at the bottom. Easy peasy, 1 inch at the bottom. And the front, 1 inch on the side, curving down to 2 inches in the center front. That little curve, you won't see it when I'm wearing, this projection is going to sort that out. What I didn't want was my front pulling up at the center front and just looking different than the back. So that is my whole aim. Whenever I turn around and you see the side profile, I always want the hem even front and back. That is a fitting goal of mine for anything that I sew, dresses, shirts, whatever. And this as well. So that was my thing here. Now, I had a problem with the sleeves because I added an inch to the sleeve just by guesstimating, actually. And I did run into problems with the sleeves turning out short. How could I have prevented this with a non-wearable garment? Some cheap fabric, whatever, to test these things. But I just was not keen on buying fabric. I didn't even know where to get some cheap fabric right here. Any fabric, the cheapest I'd ever seen was like £9 a meter. I was not going to invest that to do a test garment just to check for the sleeve fit. So I was just crossing my fingers that inch was going to be enough, and it was not. But limitless sewing, right? We can always fix it, especially if you have a little bit left over. So that is the only fitting issue I ran into there. I'm going to show you some prep work that I did to get my pattern pieces ready, some interfacing, all the pattern pieces, the lining pieces, how I cut those out. You're going to see I just made one tiny change to the lining pieces. It was all pretty straightforward to cut out. This is where the welt pocket is, and I've drawn an outline around it. This is an extra area I'm going to interface right there where you see that red line. So I made that little tiny piece that I've just replicated from the mark there. From the rectangle, I just drew out 5/8 of an inch around it just so that I have enough of a space already interfaced. I use this template to cut out my two pieces interfacing, and I put this here, poked a few pins through here so I could see them coming out the other side. So I had the pins poking out, and that's how I fused that on right here and right there on the wrong side of this bottom piece. So that's how the wrong side looks, where the welt pockets are going to be. These lining pieces are going to go in right here, and you can see that they're shorter. This is the piece I would need to cut if I had made the original length of the pullover, but because I've lengthened it, I'm going to need to modify these pocket pieces to match because this has to reach the bottom right here. So I'm going to place that on top of my front piece and figure out how much paper I need to add to these pieces right here so that this actually does reach the bottom right here of my modified piece because it's longer, and it's longer here on the center front than on the side. The smaller one, if you notice, one is a little bit narrower here. This is the one that goes right there. I'm going to place that little line and that little line against the reference points right here. Line it up on there. And now I know how much I need to add. So I'm going to cut some paper, stick it on, and just align it here at the bottom and trim so that it's the same shape. And then I'm going to follow the same amount for this one at the bottom right there. I've stuck an extra piece of paper. I've just continued that curve. I can see the bottom of my front piece through the paper. So I'm just going to trace that right there. Now you can ignore that if you're not making your pullover longer like I did. And then I'm going to add the same amount to this one so that they match right here. Here are the pieces that need interfacing. These are the two welt pieces, rectangles. These are the two placket pieces and just a single color piece right there. So as usual, block fusing, I've already cut out a piece slightly larger than my pattern piece. It's already been interfaced. And now all I need to do is trim so that nothing changes and they all come out looking the same. There's no chance for this shrinking because if the fabric shrunk a little with the interfacing, that's already happened, but it's not going to interfere with the shape and size of the pieces that we need. This is standard for me. You'll never see me cut both and then fuse like the typical way. I always do it like this. And for whoever thinks we're wasting a lot of materials, it's just a little bit and it's totally worth it for the accuracy. I'm going to trim those off as well. These are the main pieces of the Pogonip Pullover. Front pieces are divided in two because there's that horizontal seam. This top part looks narrower than the bottom because there's going to be a placket right there. That is the placket. There's two of them, both interfaced. This is the area that's interfaced for the welt pocket. This is the welt piece right there. This is the collar. The back is simple, it's on the fold. And this separate piece at the bottom is the casing. We need to use 1 inch elastic in here, but I do have 3/4 of an inch just in case this seems a little snug. I'm happy to put a slightly narrower elastic there if it's going to be more comfortable within the space. This is one of the pocket pieces and this is the other pocket piece. So there's two of them. They're not the same. One is slightly longer than the other and they're going to reach the bottom right here. This is a sleeve piece. It's super simple, just one piece and the separate casing that goes at the bottom there. I did add 1 inch of length to this one. I just chose an area there, made my own shorten and lengthen line and just added 1 inch there to have the sleeve be a little bit longer. Here are all the lining pieces. Now the pattern originally has this piece right here. This is going to cover all the welt pocket area. So this is in the pattern to cut this piece as lining. It's just that I cut more pieces like the top of the front, the back and the sleeve. What I did differently for the lining is just cut it 3/8 of an inch longer right here. Same as down here and down there. I always want the lining to be a little bit longer so that there's no vertical pulling ever. It always needs to be a tad longer so you have that ease inside. That's the only difference. I cut them the same size, everything. Just these 3 pieces a little bit longer. That's all of the sewing, including the lining, the placket, the welt pocket. It's all in full-on detail over at Patreon. I mention Patreon every now and then. I don't actually self-promote. I should do. It's one of the ways I make an income creating sewing content. It's just on a different platform and it's exclusive content in a lot of detail, super helpful, lots of value. If you want to join, there is a financial commitment there. You can stay a month or longer. You have access to previous sew-alongs. Up to now, there's over 70 of them. So it's an amazing value if you want to join and you can leave whenever you want. I am self-promoting right now. It's really good value to join my Patreon page at the orchid level. So you can see all that detail there if you already belong there. Thank you so much for being on my Patreon page. And if you're not, you're welcome to join if you have the means for that and you'd like to support me for that. Now, let me show you just a snippet of how my sleeves turned out. Yeah, just let me show you. Now, I should have added 1 extra inch to the length of the sleeves. It's fine, but if I move about, they sort of ride up. It's hard to measure sleeves like this that are dropped because you don't measure from here. You measure, you don't really know from where because they actually start from here. Let me tell you how uncomfortable this short sleeve was. It was just so uncomfortable. So if I stand without moving, which is not how I live my life, I'm like, yeah, the sleeve is sort of right there. But once I lift my arms and do this or anything, it was just pulling and it was going up to here, literally. Unwearable. I couldn't live my life like that. I knew there's no way. So much effort into sewing this and lining it and getting the welt pockets right and all the things, you know. I had a little bit left over. So let me show you how I'm going to fix this. And it started with a simple idea that turned into another idea. All still simple, just a little bit different. So yeah, let me show you how I fix this. I've taken that little tiny piece that had the elastic. This is the length of the sleeve, and I'm doing it with my arm extended because that's real life for me. If I just stand with my arm down, it's not real, because when I bend, look how far up it comes, way above my little bone here. So I want to create a cuff that's at least 4 inches so that it sits right here on my hand. That's what I like. Remember, this is customizable. So I'm going to create one that's at least 4 inches or just under that, so that when I move, it's going to be more comfortable. Now, I think the weight of this is perfect. Thankfully, I have a tiny bit of fabric left over, so I can remake my cuff. This was the original piece, and this was folded in half and sewn, so you can see how tiny this was right here. It still made this very short, very uncomfortable. So I've got the original piece, which is this one. So I know what circumference to cut because I'm not going to change my sleeve. I just made it longer up here. So basically I have 8 inches here, 20 centimeters. When I fold it, then I'm going to take 3/8 away. I'm going to end up with 9 centimeters, which is just under the 4 inches. And this is what's going to be sewn onto here. And I think I'm going to be much happier. This is my cuff piece, and looking at my fabric, I can see that I have some left over here. So I remembered a feature of the downtown jacket from Pattern Emporium has an overlapped cuff. I'm going to give credit where it's due. So basically all I did, this is just approximating how much I want to overlap here on the back. I want to overlap 1.5 inches. That's 4 centimeters. And then I added 2 more, or 3/4 of an inch more, to account for seam allowance. So I'm going to have seam allowance here. And then I'm going to have 1.5 extra inches to overlap. And so I'll make it overlap on this side, and I'll add a little button. I think it's going to look super cute. It's going to make a feature out of this short sleeve. So basically I'm going to cut a larger piece here, just a little bit larger than my pattern piece. I'm going to interface that, and then I'm going to trim it out. I'm going to interface the whole cuff so that it's nice and structured. The original casing here wasn't interfaced for the Pogonip because it had an elastic inside. It makes total sense. But since I've gotten rid of the elasticated feature, I am going to interface these cuffs. Okay, so these are the cuffs. The way that I'm going to sew them with that overlap means they're super easy. All we do is fold them lengthwise, right sides together. And we're going to sew these short ends with 3/8 seam allowance, and then we're going to flip it. So we're just going to have an extended piece that we wrap around the end of the sleeve with an overlap, and then we sew on the round. This is a sleeve. This is the back part of the sleeve. So when we wear it, this would be over here. So where we have the seam, the underarm seam, I'm going to measure 2.5 inches from that. So there's the seam. There is 0, and I'm going to put a pin there. That's where I'm going to take my cuff and align this finished edge right there. And I'm going to start pinning it all the way around. Once I get to this part, I'm going to have that 1.5 inch overlap that I was counting on from the beginning. So that's just pinned roughly. I'm going to sort that out, neaten it up. When we wear the sleeve, if I slide my hand in here, this is going to be towards the back. So here's my hand, this is going to be on the back. And right here on this part that overlaps, I'm going to add a button that matches the buttons I've got on the front. So I think it's going to be super cute. And then I'm going to do the same with the other side, just mirrored. So it looks like this, but mirrored on the other side. And this isn't too narrow that it doesn't fit here. It fits, so that makes it easier. After sewing this on the round, I'm going to serge it. And then I'm just going to press all of the seam allowance up away from the cuff so you don't see it. Yeah, so the seam allowance is going to go up, and you never see it because of this overlap. It's all going to be super neat on the inside. Then all I have to do is sew on a button, and that's the end of this hack to make my sleeves longer. Super happy. So I'm going to give credit, I've sewn a cuff that's overlapped probably at the end of 2024, a jacket from Pattern Emporium. Downtown jacket has this overlap cuff. I remember the concept. I sort of just guesstimated there how much I wanted to overlap and how much extra seam allowance I was going to do. It's sort of freestyle sewing. I love that. It's just the best thing. So it turned out exactly like I wanted it to. And now, this measuring sleeve type fail is fixed. It's really hard. Now, if this was a regular sleeve like this one, I could actually measure the sleeve because I know what my sleeve length is, and then I would know how much to lengthen. But when you look at any style that has a drop shoulder, you know, the front piece drops down to here and then your sleeve looks like this, but you don't really know because you don't know where that seam hits and where the sleeve actually starts. So it is a style that's just difficult than others to do flat pattern measurements. So that's why I failed in just guesstimating 1 inch was enough. You know, in hindsight, I should have added like 2.5 inches to the sleeve for my longish arms. Just taught people problems. It probably will be okay if you're not 5'8". It's just the way I'm experiencing this and how I'm fixing it. And just remember, limitless sewing, you know, sometimes you think something's terrible and it's like unwearable, whatever. No, if you have a little bit left over, and usually we do have a bit left over for a cuff, the fix was so easy. So let me show you my pullover. Here it is. I think it turned out amazing. The fabric is so nice. I love lightweight wool. This is going to be amazing for me in Brazil for the winter over there. I have already worn this out when I went to a nearby little supermarket, and it's just the best thing. It's like wearing a hoodie, but better because it's woven and it's wool. It's just so nice. So here is my brand new cuff. It lengthened my sleeve. It's got that overlap feature on the back, and the button, I sewed it right through, no buttonholes, nothing like that. I do have buttonholes here because I do want these functional so that I can open up my placket if I want to. It's a wide collar. It's not going to be tight around here at all. And you know, to be honest, I'm probably going to wear it open 90% of the time, unless it's a really cold day and I'm really trying to get warm, you know. So I'll probably wear it with the 2 buttons of the top undone. And the back is super simple. It's just on the fold, but the front underneath the placket has the seam across there, and the welt pockets are here. There's a welt pocket opening. All of this area is interfaced. Really nice. You can't see the pocket bags in there with the gray cotton lawn because of this welt piece. So it's all fully tucked in there. And at the bottom is the casing with the elastic. That was the same feature that was here originally, but not there anymore. I don't really care that the features don't match anymore. You know, what I care about is having a comfortable long sleeve that I can enjoy without it pulling up and feeling super uncomfortable like I felt it was right there. So let me show you the inside. It's so nice. I'm not going to be worried about anything itching because I have it all lined. It's so nice. So it's all the gray lining here, gray lining on the sleeve. This is all caught with the cuff together and the seam allowance pressed up. Now this is the front. It looks nicer because it's got all the black area. You know, if this ever opens up and you can see a little bit of that, I prefer it to be black because it matches the buttons and it's just cooler. And then the bottom is there. This is caught all at the bottom. The lining is slightly longer. I always want some vertical ease with any lining so it doesn't pull up the main pieces. That's super important. And then this is where I had to figure out how to join this and leave it separate. I wanted this to be free to move around. So it was sewn with machine up to a certain point. Some of it was hand sewn right across here. And it was a really fun process to think about on the go. So it's all great when you have instructions for things, but I actually do enjoy just thinking I'm going to add something myself, and figuring it all out as I go is very stimulating for me. I just love it so much. So I'm very happy. This little bit is slip stitched by hand in there. It's very, very neat, and I'm going to really enjoy this winter pullover. Let me show you its style. This is my Pogonip Pullover from Friday Pattern Company. I have an L at the top bust area, then blended to extra large at the hips. I added 1 inch length to this, so it's a little bit longer for me. It's actually 1 inch on the back, but at the center front it's 2, so there's a slight curve there. You can see the casing and everything hits at my high hip, which is where I like it. I like it with this denim skirt. I think it looks super cool. It's like a dressed up pullover. I love the fabric. It's a wool blend and it's fully lined. My original sleeve was too short, so I hacked this cuff that's overlapped. I don't have the casing. It would have been the same detail as the hem on the sleeve. Those are the welt pockets. They do have a nice capacity in there. I'm never going to put anything in there. And mine is fully lined because it's wool and it's a little bit scratchy, and I do want to wear it with light things underneath. So I really like that. You can see side view, the hem matches and it's nice and even front and back. That's why I added extra length to the center front. There is a placket, really easy to sew. There's a horizontal seam that makes it easier. I've got 4 buttons and it's a drop shoulder style relaxed fit. Now this is very loose on the top. It's not going to be uncomfortable. Check out those matching buttons. I love that detail. That hack is everything. When I open it up, and if I want to wear it open, you're going to see a little bit of the lining inside, little bit. That's why I decided to do that with black. I think that looks nicer than with the gray one I had on the rest of the pullover. You can also make this in a structured knit fabric, but I like this one. It's herringbone weave. I think it looks really cool and I'm gonna really enjoy this one. I would have loved to have a set, but they didn't have enough fabric for me to buy a little bit for the skirt, so it's just a single piece. I have actually worn this out. Sporty, sneakers, comfy athletic pants, and yeah, it was a great look, great comfy for weather that's not too cold, and yeah, it was extremely comfortable to wear. Just a little bit more elevated than a neat one, I think. I love it in the wall. I really like it. I think I would love to make this again. I think I would keep this feature. I think it's really nice. I actually realize now I like wide cuffs. I'm really sensitive in this area. I really don't like anything touching my skin or anything. So yeah, I think if I'd made this again, I would still keep this, but I would keep this cuff right here. I think it's really nice. It's always so much nicer sewing something a second time around because you already know what's going on. And if I made this in linen or something, I wouldn't line it completely. I just did this because of the wool. And I loved every single second of it. I'm not affiliated to Friday Pattern Company. They don't have an affiliate program. So I'm not earning commissions, nothing like that. I do like the pattern. I think it's really nice. Friendly critique about not having interfacing around the welts. But that's something that you can add on. Now, why have I been away for a little bit? Well, a lot of things. Sometimes I might sort of slip away for a bit, but it's not like I'm having a vacation or I'm like, you know, lying around. I have been sewing so many things behind the scenes. I have sewn my Patreon project for March, which took me like full on 5 days to do from start to finish. I have been doing some wearable test garments for a pattern test that's ongoing. That's going to be released weeks from now. I've been doing another really interesting sew with a really interesting zip. I've been sewing every single day. It's just that sometimes a little period might go by. Now, I'm not the type of content creator that has specific dates. I know some YouTube channels say we post every Monday and Thursday. I can't do that. I just cannot. I'm a one-person team, so everything you see here, the filmography, the photographs, the editing, the graphics, the sewing, the everything is all done by me. And so sometimes I just cannot keep going making new things while I'm behind the scenes actually sewing the things. So that's the reason. So I post when I'm ready, and I have a goal every month of having 8 to 10 videos. Whether they're all stacked up together in a period or there's a period in between, it sometimes just works out like that. And I've come to terms with the fact that that's how it's going to work for me. I don't have a team. I don't have people editing. I have had offers from people writing me and telling me I'd like to edit your videos, but they are people that don't know anything about sewing. I find that my sewing segments are so technical and I don't really trust anyone to make them what I want them to be and to highlight what I want to highlight. And yeah, it's just not something I look to outsource at all. Also, I can't outsource the general editing, these talking bits, because I really can't afford that investment. My YouTube channel does not make enough monthly to be able to outsource that. I don't think it ever will. This is not a niche like others on YouTube. So I'm very content and I'm okay doing all the work myself. It's just that sometimes I step away for a bit so I can actually do the thing. And then I start putting videos together and you'll see more of me from now on. Is it the 7th of April? So from the 7th to the 30th of April, you're going to have a lot of content from me. This is a really busy month as well because I'm going to be back in Brazil for a little bit. So it's going to take a little while to unload and unpack and resettle my life over there. So yeah, I've still got everything planned so that you don't miss out on any content from here till the end of the month. So don't worry, it's a little hiatus over here. I was just getting the work done. Thank you for supporting my work over here by watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, like if you think this is helpful. It's the best way to let YouTube know that this is good quality content. And I will see you very soon. Bye.